It's an ancient question. Where did we come from? How did consciousness develop? Where and why did we acquire these religious beliefs about the world? Why are we seemingly so different from all other organisms? In this video, I will propose a theory that answers all these questions and many more. But first, let's begin with a simpler question. Where did we get our hands? Your initial thought might be that we got our hands from our ancestors, who got it from their ancestors, and so forth. And though technically this is correct, it misses the point. We got our hands from our environment, and in this case, we got them from trees. This question emphasizes a foundational principle in biology, the fact that we are products of our ancestors' surroundings and environments. Whether it's opposable thumbs, hairless bodies, or yes, religious beliefs, they are all a product of the environment that we evolved in. Keep this key principle in mind as we continue throughout this video series because it is foundational to this theory. Our journey begins roughly 8 million years ago within the riverside forests of Ethiopia, where our last common ancestors with modern-day chimpanzees lived. No one knows for certain what these organisms look like. Many think that they look similar to chimpanzees, but a little bit smaller. I think a good analogous organism is a bonobo. These early hominids are unbelievably tailored to their environment. We've been evolving in the trees now for 50 million years, and our bodies show these adaptations. We see long, strong arms, hands, and feet that are capable of grabbing onto things like branches. We see a very successful organism, one that is protected from what lies beneath the canopy, one that in a way is evolutionarily complacent. Culturally, these organisms have a significant division amongst responsibilities between sexes. The females of the species were primarily tasked with caring for the young. This included both gathering food and protecting the offspring, neither of which were very difficult due to the abundance of rainforest resources and the inherent protection from below. There exist a few theories about the males in these primitive cultures. It seems that most likely they weren't around very often. They'd primarily hang out with other males in groups and travel around wherever they wanted, unless the females were in heat, or another term, the biological term for this, is in estrus. When the females are ready to breed, all of a sudden the males come rolling around. The sexual behavior of these ancient ancestors was most likely aligned with what we call today polygamy. Short-lived sexual encounters were repeated with a variety of different mates over the course of a short period of time. Since the females of the species could sync their menstruation cycles, it meant that all the females went into heat at the same time. Perhaps for only a week or maybe at most a month out of the year, the males would actually be around. But for them, this was perfect. The males didn't need to be around all the time. There was no jealousy due to the polygamous behavior. There's no infanticide because the child wasn't yours. It was primitive, it was comfortable, it was peaceful. Now we'll get into this later in this series, but I want you to associate this comfort, this complacency with the mythological conception of paradise, or more specifically, the Garden of Eden. Due to a climate disaster roughly 5 to 7 million years ago, the environment of our ancient ancestors changed significantly and rather quickly. The trees that our ancestors grew up in, became attuned to, and were literally molded by were now replaced with endless savannas, deserts, and most significantly, danger. The trees that remained were less fruitful. They were overpopulated by our relatives. This line of proto-hominids eventually evolved to become modern-day chimpanzees, our closest ancestor. These were the organisms that wouldn't allow us back into the trees. And as we'll see, this acquisition of the tree environment led them down a very different path. Our physical inferiorities emphasized in this novel environment. We're not strong, we're not fast, we don't cooperate very well, we have no fangs, armor, or horns. We're completely hopeless in this new environment unless we change. I mentioned previously that the physical and mental characteristics of an organism are molded by their environment. Throughout history, when an organism is introduced to a new environment, it's usually accompanied by an increase in the speed of evolution. This is called punctuated equilibrium. However, this is a very dangerous game. Too much change and the organism can't keep up and will eventually go extinct. Now in this case, we know the ending of the story. We obviously succeeded, but not without some of the most significant biological changes that the animal kingdom has ever seen. Like any organism, we played to our advantages. We didn't have the speed of a gazelle, but we could stand upright so we could see over the tall grasses of the savannah. We didn't have the claws of lions, but we had delicate fingers that could help us manipulate our environment, turn sticks into spears, turn rocks into hammers. We didn't have size either, but we had social cohesion, specifically between the males of our species. By playing to our advantages, our fingers created tools, and our upright posture secured safety. The males became scavengers, finding carcasses of dead animals and gathering the food before the predators could find them. During this time, there was selective pressure for cooperation. The groups that worked the best together and could trust each other obviously were the ones that succeeded. This held true for communication as well. If we can communicate back and forth while we're out on the field, we're going to have a huge evolutionary advantage over any other group that is out there trying to survive. As a mythological perspective, you might have guessed, we can call this the fall, the exit from paradise accompanied by the struggle for survival and existence. However, this is not at all the end of the story. We're still millions of years away from modern day humans, and we're still millions of years away from religious beliefs. And in the next video, I will discuss the single largest change in the history of humanity, and it's something that literally makes us human. For now, let's reflect on a few fascinating lessons that we can learn from this period of human evolution. First is that hardship creates change, and that comfort can result in complacency. Our ancestors once kicked from paradise, once kicked from the canopy, were in the toughest situation that the human animal had ever been in, and it resulted in massive alterations. And although the organisms that remained in the trees, who evolved into modern day chimpanzees, are incredible organisms, they're nothing compared to humans. Another lesson that we can take away from this is that change, and specifically significant change, takes a very long time. Sometimes we move to a new city or take a new job, and it takes us a while to get used to it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's the comfort that is holding us back. In the next video, we're going to talk about the origin of the earliest spiritual orientation, animism, and actually talking about how it originated. I've never seen an explanation like this. I guarantee you're going to love that next video. So be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.